What if Robert Baratheon executed Jaime Lannister for killing the Mad King? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The throne room falls silent as Ned Stark and his men stare at the corpses laid out before the gathered lords. The Mad King, Elia Martell, and her children, all dead by Lannister hands. These are the last casualties of the war, and as Ned looks at the Lannisters, although Tywin's face is impassive, he notices the faint look of approval flickering across his face. His son is the opposite, with a faint smirk, but his eyes are troubled. He cannot hide it, no matter how hard he tries. But it isn't enough for Ned. It certainly didn't stop him from committing this heinous act. As he looks at Robert, the rebellion leader looks troubled, but there is also a hint of relief, which only angers Ned further.
Robert, what you see here is an act of barbarism, and must be treated as such. These are children we're talking about. A babe in his mother's arms. Do not tell me you mean to allow this at the start of your reign.
Their deaths are regrettable, but they were necessary to secure the throne, Lord Stark. Once the Targaryens on Dragonstone are dealt with, there shall be no one left to challenge King Robert's rule.
Do not paint this as some necessity. Robert, if you do this, then your rule shall be cursed. An act like this must be punished.
Punished? We are rebels as well. We fight for the same banner. My men bled into this city. Now they are to be punished for doing what you could not.
Ned looks at Robert, almost pleading. The newly made king is uncharacteristically silent as he stares at the corpses. Emotions war within himself as he struggles to make sense of it all. All the battles he fought in the war have not prepared him for this. He doubts anything ever will, but as Ned shouts his name, he finds himself looking up.
Lord Tywin speaks truly. He fought for my banner. I am to reward this loyalty with betrayal. And what of Sir Jaime? He was sworn to serve Aerys, and wore his white cloak even as he drove his sword into his back. He could have taken it off at any time and denounced him, as we did.
Jaime's eyes widen, and Tywin's nostrils flare.
My son is not some bargaining chip to assuage your guilty conscience, Stark.
No. Just a kingslayer and a traitor. Robert
Robert looks at the two men and takes a deep breath. He stares at the horrors left over from these kids and perhaps feels a pang of guilt for his role in the matter. Taking a deep breath, he nodded.
Very well. The Kingslayer faces the block or takes the black. Black was never my color.
Ned doesn't complain, as that is what he intended. Drawing his sword, he advances cautiously. Seeing the other Stark men approaching, Jaime does the same and springs into movement, cutting down the first two who approach him. Ned lunges at him, and their swords ring out. In these first few blows, it soon becomes clear who has the upper hand, as Ned struggles to hold him back and staggers. Jaime advances at him and sweeps his longsword towards him. Though at a disadvantage, Ned holds his own and doesn't yield. Jaime is impressed and continues to press him, to no avail. The Lord of Winterfell fights bravely, never yielding any ground as he tries stabbing forward, only to be checked by Jaime's parry. He then whirls and unleashes a flurry of strikes that sends Ned struggling to protect himself. Gritting his teeth, he feels his arms rattling from the attack, and one attack threatens to knock the sword from his hand.
2-on-1. Hardly honorable.
This isn't a duel, Kingslayer. It's an execution.
But the next blow does not come, as Robert blocks this strike. Although still wounded, he glares at Jaime and twists his arms to angle Jaime's sword down, letting him smash him and access the face with his mailed fist. Ned takes the chance and swipes his sword across Jaime's cheek, sending it aswash with blood. Jaime checks the second strike, but Robert grabs his arm and pulls it down. Jaime tries to pull back, but Robert's grip is like iron, holding him in place and letting Ned drive the sword into his neck. As Jaime's body hits the ground, the room falls silent. Some of the Westermen step forward, their swords ready. Ned's Northmen do the same, but both sides seem evenly matched. For a long moment, no one moves as they dare not strike one another. But Robert breaks the silence and slams his hammer down.
Any man who raises his sword against Ned Stark raises it against the King's peace.
This is enough to convince the remaining men in the room to rush to the Stark side, but the Lannisters do not lower their weapons. Tywin stares at the two with absolute loathing. Sir Gregor takes a step forward, but is blocked by Great John Umber, who is just as tall as him.
You will regret this, Lord Stark. Lord Robert. A Lannister always pays his debts.
But he gestures for his men to put their swords away. Without another word, he marches them out of the throne room. Once the doors close behind him, Robert sinks back into the throne and sighs. It is his first time sitting there, but he feels little joy in it.
I haven't sat on that throne a day, and I already got myself into this mess. What in the seven hells did I do, Ned? You acted like a king, Robert. One I would be proud to follow. If Lord Tywin strikes, he will have to contend with us.
The rest of the Northmen, Riverfolk, and Valemen all echo this sentiment, but Robert orders the bodies to be removed from his presence. The next few days are tense as they anticipate some retaliation from Lord Tywin, and Ned keeps close to Robert, ready to protect him or escort him to safety when the situation arises. But thankfully, it doesn't come to that. Instead, Lord Tywin simply leaves, taking all his troops and departing the city, cursing Robert's name. Only then do the rebels relax, and Ned allows himself to depart the Tower of Joy. There he finds Lyanna and her children. Unfortunately, the young Stark woman's health is failing, and she dies soon after. To make matters worse, Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen are able to escape. By this point, most of the garrison is happy to sell them out, and Sir William Darry prepares to make his move. But to his surprise, a ship appears in the nearby fishing village, provided by a mysterious benefactor who offers their aid. Though wary, Sir William accepts this offer, and the ship takes them to Braavos, where the Targaryen children find a house purchased for their use. Rather than growing up as beggars, they instead grow up in luxury, with servants and sellswords tending to their needs. In the meantime, Robert tries to consolidate his crown. Though the Dornish were originally hostile to him, after hearing of Jaime's execution, they become more amicable and see the king as more reasonable. They insist that Tywin be punished further, though. Jon Arryn tries to make amends with Tywin, offering to wed Robert to Cersei several times, but each time this is furiously rejected. So instead, Jon decides to isolate Tywin by depriving him of possible allies. The North, Reach, and Riverlands already prefer Robert over him, so Jon approaches the Reach for a possible marriage alliance. Mace answers this message, offering to match one of his sisters, Janna, ensuring that the Reach remains loyal after he is granted a position in the small council. With both the Dornish and Tyrells pacified, this leaves only Tywin as the focal point of dissent. The marriage is not particularly happy, as with the death of Lyanna, Robert falls into a depression and never wishes to marry. It is only because of Jon Arryn's urging that he agrees to this match. However, Janna proves to be a better match than Cersei, as the two are not hostile either. Robert treats her politely, and Janna remains faithful to her husband, but never truly love each other. This union soon accomplishes its goal, as within a year, the queen becomes the queen mother with the birth of a healthy pair of twins, whom they name Orys and Lyanna. Whatever grief Robert has towards his departed beloved, he showers love towards his children, especially when they show Lyanna Stark's fiery temperament. Both grow up to be strong, spirited, and brave. It soon becomes clear that the pair take after their father. Both even have aptitude towards combat, with Robert taking over and personally training Orys to use his hammer, while Lyanna is trained to use a longbow. He is happy to spend as much time as he can with his children, leaving most of the ruling to Jon Arryn. Thankfully, Jon presides over a time of peace and selects his small council carefully. He initially offers the position of Master of Coin to Lord Tywin, but the old lion refuses, saying that a man who once served as hand will never be satisfied with anything being relegated to a mere finger. When that falls, Jon Arryn offers the position to Mace Tyrell, and they have no further need to appease Lord Tywin. Varys and Pycelle are removed and replaced with newer men, including Elia Martell, who serves as the former. Meanwhile, Tywin watches all of this with growing disdain. Though he hoped that the realm would crumble under Robert's inexperience, it seems that things are looking up, and the few rebellions that do spring up are easily crushed as Robert can call upon most of the great houses. The one rebellion that shows any real threat is Balon Greyjoy's, and that fails within a year. To make matters worse, he begins this independence movement by burning the Lannister fleet, forcing Robert to come to his rescue. That humiliation was perhaps the most galling, but he has no choice but to swallow his pride and watch as the realm prospers. That is, until one day he receives a visitor, a former member of Aerys' small council. Although Tywin considers sending him away, as being associated with any of Aerys' inner circle can mean death, his surprise overcomes his pragmatism, so he allows him to meet him.
Lord Varys, I admit I'm surprised to see you. I would have assumed you fled back across the narrow sea.
I admit I considered returning to my homeland after the fall of our dear King Aerys, but it is difficult to leave when our work is far from complete. What is there left to do? The king is dead, and I doubt his successor would want anything to do with us. It seems our talents would be wasted working under King Robert, assuming he doesn't take our heads.
Indeed. But while the king may have fallen, the prince and princess remain.
The beggar prince. Last I heard, he was across the narrow sea, hiding in Bravos. He has no armies or supporters who will back his claim.
You are looking at it the wrong way, Lord Tywin. If you look at him for what he is, not what he might become. Yes, Viserys is rough around the edges and will require significant investment, but so is digging a new mine or clearing land for farms. All it requires is a steady hand.
You wish for me to do what? To raise a king? If Robert catches wind of this, he shall have my head. He may demand it for simply talking to you.
No worries on that, Lord Tywin. I will ensure that anything we discuss remains between us. But is that what you fear? Losing more? Robert has already taken much from you. You lost a son, a crown, and now the throne you helped win. But I can offer you fire and blood.
Tywin considers this offer carefully. He knows that what the spider is suggesting is dangerous. He's seen Viserys during his time as Hand, and though his father sought to shelter him from the hardships of the world, there were already troubling signs of instability. But at the same time, the rewards could be great. Viserys is still young, and there is time to squash that madness in him. Varys was right on that account. If he takes action now, he might be in a position to play Kingmaker.
If all goes according to plan, this may also mean that the Westerlands will stand alone in this war.
On the contrary, many may have bent the knee, but they do so out of fear rather than loyalty. The realm is not as unified as you may think, as some smaller houses are prepared to rise in support of you.
Tywin has no way of confirming this, but he's rarely known Varys to be wrong, and agrees to this plan only after he's met Viserys for himself. The candlelight flickers low in the Braavosi manse as Sir Willem Darry lies on his cot, skin clammy with fever and breath coming in shallow rasps. The healer wipes his brow, but nothing seems to ease the old knight's decline. Daenerys clutches his hand, lips trembling, while Viserys paces like a trapped animal, fists clenched at his side. Then comes a knock. The servant enters quietly, head bowed, holding a small wooden box bound in wax and twine, saying it was a gift from a friend across the narrow sea. When they open the boxes, they find 3 glass vials, maester-forged medicines from Westeros. The healer studies them, eyes widening. He nods once. They pour the liquid down Willem's throat. Hours pass. His breathing steadies. By dawn, the fever breaks. Though it takes weeks for him to recover, he manages to come around and become stronger than ever, to the relief of the Targaryens and especially Daenerys, who embraces the old knight as if he were her father. But soon more news arrives, as the same servant returns, saying the man who provided them with that medicine wishes to meet them and discuss the future of the Iron Throne. Viserys' eyes dance excitedly with the prospect, and he readily agrees. Weeks later, the servants bring a litter with rich golden curtains. The 2 children are flanked by Sir Willem, who watches them warily as the litter is set down at the foot of the stairs, and a figure steps out. Their breath catches in their throats as they see who it is. Tywin Lannister. Willem stops short. Viserys narrows his eyes.
Lannister, if I wished you harm, Sir Willem, you would not be standing. Did you enjoy my gift?
If you think saving one life will atone for your many crimes, Your Grace, you must know that this is... I know who he is. My father's most trusted servant, Tywin Lannister. Or at least he was until he sacked our city. You let my brother die. You murdered his wife and children. Why shouldn't I have Sir Willem cut you down now?
I claim no responsibility for Rhaegar. That was Robert's doing. Him and his hammer. But for those other accusations, I had no choice. Your father, may he rest, was beyond saving. Robert would have killed them all if I hadn't acted. But I did save you, Viserys. It was I who sent the ship. I who ensured your safety.
Willem shifts slightly, confused. He often wondered who sent that ship. Viserys glances at him. He's never heard this version of the story. It was a lie. Varys organized it, but was happy to let Tywin take credit.
I couldn't save the king, but I preserved his heir. You, a true dragon, a prince meant to be king. By letting the others die, I ensured that no man may challenge your succession.
Viserys straightens. His heart beats faster.
But another sits on the throne. A man who would see us dead.
Aye, he needed to be placated, or he would have haunted you to the ends of the world. Believe me, it brings me no joy to see him upon the Iron Throne. Allow me to help you retake your birthright.
And what do you ask in exchange?
My daughter, Cersei. She was promised a crown and had it stolen. She still mourns Prince Rhaegar. She dreamed of marrying a silver-haired prince. I rejected Robert. No doubt he would have abused her if he claimed her. I would offer her to you, as it should have been, as it was meant to be.
And when do we march, Lord Lannister?
Soon, but we must prepare. You need allies, wisdom and power. I can give you all three, but you must be more than a boy with a crown. You must become king. Let me teach you. I have served your father. Let me serve you. In time, the realm will kneel to its rightful ruler.
Very well, Lord Lannister. Teach me to rule.
The Baratheon twins grow up surrounded by strength and sorrow. From their earliest days, Orys and Lyanna are their father's pride. He dotes on them and prefers spending his time with them rather than ruling. But though he never hides his affection, he also never hides his longing for Lyanna, and that manifests in their relationship. Robert Baratheon adores his children. He teaches Orys how to wield a hammer before the boy can even lift it properly. He tells him of the battles he fought, the oaths he broke, and the men he slew. Always with that same thunderous laugh and a horn of ale never far from hand.
You've got my arms, boy. One day you'll smash skulls like I did at the Trident, and you'll make your lady love happy.
And when young Lyanna looses an arrow and splits her mark clean, Robert roars with joy.
That's my little toe. You've got that fire in you, just like she did.
The children grow up in the warmth of their father's pride, but also never complete. The ghosts of his past are never far. All his praise is also a comparison with the woman he lost. Robert does not speak of the future. He does not teach Orys the burden of rule or the art of politics. Instead, he reminisces. Always reminisces.
There was no battle like the bells. I painted the cobblestones red for a whore I never even kissed.
Lyanna Baratheon, only 9, furrows her brow.
Father, what about the Targaryen children? The ones they killed in the sack of King's Landing?
They were dragons, girl. The blood of tyrants. What Tywin did was monstrous, but I'm glad he did so I didn't have to do it alone.
Orys says nothing, but he watches. He listens, and in his silence, doubt begins to bloom. As the years pass, Orys becomes a mirror of his father, broad-shouldered, fierce, gifted with arms. Yet, unlike Robert, Orys is more cautious, thoughtful. He senses something is broken in his father, something no warhammer can fix. He begins to question the hatred Robert insists they carry. He wonders what kind of king he should be. Lyanna, meanwhile, grows wider with age, more cautious and restless. She sneaks into the library, finds dusty volumes on Valyria and the Targaryens, or rides off alone. The girl is fascinated by dragons, by the magics they performed, and the wonders they've created. She doesn't speak of it aloud, not yet, but she wonders what truth lies beneath the stories they've been told.
Maybe they weren't all monsters.
Maybe. But we'll never know, sister. Lord Tywin killed them.
Not all, just Viserys and Daenerys. Aerys' other children. They disappeared from Dragonstone.
And somewhere across the sea, the fire their father fears is beginning to stir. Meanwhile, Viserys and Daenerys also grow up in secret, trained by Tywin. Though they spend most of their time in Braavos and absolute secrecy, they travel all across the free cities with Sir Willem. They are given advisors and tutors paid for by Castle Rock to help them. These are handpicked by Tywin for their talent and loyalty. They instruct Viserys in the ways of swordsmanship, ruling, and negotiation, and confirming Tywin's fears of the growing madness. He sends maesters to try and treat and quash it in him, either through the tutors or himself as he visits them several times a year to personally oversee their training. The Lord of Castle Rock is without doubt the sternest of their mentors. He forces them to make difficult decisions, telling them that this is the burden of the crown, quick to criticize and rarely offering praise. Tywin makes sure that they consult him or the household he provides before making any decisions, reminding them that he will become their hand and they must learn to trust him. Viserys largely accepts this role, seeing it as Tywin making good on his promise and how he has no reason to betray them as everything hinges on him being put on the throne. Their royal blood doesn't excuse them from Tywin's sharp tongue and ruthless training. In contrast, Sir Willem guides Viserys through arms training and teaches Daenerys to defend herself. He trains them with compassion, viewing them as children he never had, and encourages them to act with honor and to rule fairly. During one such lesson, Willem tries to tell them as much amidst the crack of swords.
I know little of politics, but I know the sword, and when a man draws his steel, it should mean he has exhausted all other means. Lord Tywin says that a sword is a tool as much as words are, or threats. It should always be ready.
Lord Tywin is a different sort of man. The dangerous kind. I remember the days of Aerys. He was feared by all, respected by some, but loved by none.
Perhaps it is better to be feared. No man defies one they fear.
That's true enough. But what if they fear something else more? A man won't fight for you after that. But with love and loyalty, soldiers will march to the ends of the earth for you.
Like you, Sir Willem.
I appreciate the kind words, Your Grace, but all an old knight requests is that you take his words to heart.
It is a fair attempt to steer him straight, but at the same time, Viserys feels himself being pulled in opposite directions as both sides wish to turn him into a very different sort of king, and it takes a toll on him. Though he has long coveted the crown, having it within his grip makes it feel so much more real as he struggles to learn of what sort of ruler he wants to be. Some days he is kind and understanding as Sir Willem instructs, but others he is harsh and unforgiving like Tywin. Rather than prevent his madness, the two unwittingly enable it. Sir Willem tries to manage it as best he can, but the knight is old and cannot always keep up with the prince. Even when he does, he struggles to control himself, but Tywin has little time for it as he prepares for the prince's return. True to Varys' word, he manages to recruit many houses that have little love for Robert and serve only out of fear rather than love. Lords in the Riverland and Reach offer toasts to Viserys' return, and the men of Cracklaw promise to rise in support. Those who don't fight out of loyalty are bought with Tywin's gold, who promises generous loans, titles, and to help them restore old grievances. But aside from that, he also meets with merchant princes and archons across the free cities, gathering allies from them and noting the growing debt the crown finds itself in. He manages to leverage their concerns with promises that the Lannisters and Targaryens will take on payments. Tyrosh, in particular, is pleased to hear this and begins formulating a plan with Tywin, offering ships, gold, and sellswords. With the backings of its archons, Tywin decides that the time has finally come to begin the invasion. From Tyrosh, the fleet set sail, not north to King's Landing or the Stormlands, but south to Dorne, to the Stepstones. Ships bearing the blue and green banners of Tyrosh descend like carrion birds onto the rocky isles. Hordes of sellswords come rushing out, all claiming they are under the employment of Tyrosh to retake the Stepstones for them. The sails snap in the sea wind, and beneath them, armored sellswords spill out in waves, cutting down the scattered pirate garrisons with brutal efficiency. Onlookers call it a crusade, Tyrosh reclaiming its long-disputed holdings. At least, that's the story. But Prince Oberyn Martell isn't fooled. From the deck of his sleek galley, Sunfang, his spies watched the advancing army through a spyglass. Sellswords march in crisp formation, their weapons too polished, their discipline too clean for pirates. And amid the gold and teal of Tyrosh, he spots something else fluttering in the sea wind. A crimson banner, black, a three-headed dragon. There are a few of them, just a coat of arms or a few household knights, but that's enough for him to report it. News reaches the Iron Throne within days. Panic ripples through the court. The War of the Ninepenny Kings echoes in every chamber. Merchants hoard goods. Lords clamor for answers. They worry that the Stepstones are just the beginning, and that they will use it as a springboard to strike at Dorne. Robert pounds his hammer on the council table.
And we drive them back into the sea. Prince Oberyn, you have leave to crush them. Gladly. The narrow sea will run red with their blood.
Troops are summoned. Raven wings blacken the skies. The Reach sends its bannermen. Stormlanders rally behind the crown. Among them rides Lyanna Baratheon, clad in green and gold leather, her longbow strung across her back. She's barely 16, but already eager to prove herself.
I'll show them what it means to steal from the Iron Throne.
You are not ready, and I need you here.
The troops will not fight for a distant king. They must know the crown stands with them. Father cannot risk you. You are his heir. But I am just the Lyanna that never was.
Orden suddenly clasps her hands.
Not to me. You are my sister.
Robert sends her off with equal parts pride and worry, urging Oberyn to keep her safe. The counterattack is swift and fierce. Reachmen, Dornishmen, and Stormlanders land at nightfall, launching surprise assaults on the Tyroshi-held outposts. These are signaled with a signal arrow fired by Lyanna that takes out a sentry. It's followed by screaming steel and fire along the rocky cliffs. Lyanna looses arrow after arrow from atop a bluff, downing sellswords in the dark. She moves like her namesake, wild, sharp, and unrelenting. In the morning light, they retake the outpost. But many more remain, and the prince and princess spend weeks rooting them out like rats in a hole. Oberyn leads the fourth assault personally, a red viper amongst the gold, and Lyanna tries her best to match him. The wild princess is eager to prove herself and launches daring attacks. She sometimes attacks under the cover of night, sometimes fights in the thick of battle, sniping enemy knights, and other times sheds her longbow for a lance and leads the cavalry. It is fierce fighting, and on more than one occasion she takes some great risks that nearly cost her life, but she refuses to yield. Meanwhile, Oberyn Martell is nearly unbeatable, his experience as a sellsword letting him predict their moves, and the islands fall one by one. Victory seems within reach, as during their final battle, they find the camp with the dragon banners and storm it, butchering everyone inside. And yet, as they search the bodies, they find no silver-haired prince. Far to the west, Tywin Lannister moves. While the realm celebrates its small victory, Lannister banners rise across the Westerlands and sweep into the Riverlands like fire through dry fields. Raventree Hall is besieged. Harrenhal is taken without a fight. It would be one thing if the River Lords rallied together, but as Edmure calls the banners, half of them choose treason. House Derry declares for the Targaryens, and rebel lords rally to his side, eager to regain their lands and influence as well as support their king. The Brackens help besiege Raventree Hall. The Mootons prevent supplies from reaching the Crownlands. And House Derry takes Harrenhal and begins rallying the army, while Houses Frey, Mallister, and Blackwood keep faith and try to resist as best they can alongside their liege lord. In the Reach, House Peak and a dozen minor houses suddenly refuse their levies, delaying the flow of troops to the crown. As they amass their troops, they suddenly strike against their neighbors, whose troops are fighting in the Stepstones. These rebels begin marching up north, aiming to secure the wealthy coastline. In the Vale, knights marching eastward begin to vanish. Rumors spread of wild men armed with castle-forged steel, ambushing patrols in the passes. Another gift from Varys, who visited the Mountains of the Moon and stirred the clansmen up into a frenzy. The Blackfish has his hands full just keeping them at bay. From Cracklaw Point, under the cover of mist and forgotten trails, the real Viserys Targaryen lands. He rides beneath a banner black as night, 3 dragons snarled in the wind. With him are battle-hardened mercenaries, exiled knights, and the support of Tyrosh's elite. Locals, forgotten and neglected by the Iron Throne, offer food and shelter. The young king steps onto Westerosi soil for the first time in over a decade. He accepts them graciously.
No more whispers, no more shadows. Let them see the face of their future.
The Dairylands burn. Viserys Targaryen's eastern host surges across the Trident, banners snapping, swords gleaming in the morning sun. Local lords, eager to avenge past insults, open their gates. House Derry, long loyal to the dragon, raises its banners once more, serving as the rallying point, and Viserys hurries to link up with them. But the dragon's roar does not go unanswered. Robert Baratheon rides hard from the south, storming into the Riverlands. With him rides Sir Richard Horpe of the Kingsguard, cold, sharp, and utterly loyal. At Robert's side is Orys, now clad in full plate, the crowned stag. He looks every bit a warrior of legend, but there is a hint of uncertainty in the boy, especially as they reach Derry. The fields east of Red Fork become a slaughterhouse. Orys fights with grim precision, leading the vanguard as the Derry army tries to retreat and link with Viserys. They never make it. The Crown's army crushes them under hoof and hammer. Sir Richard Horpe offers no quarter. Captured men are dragged before him. Some plead for mercy, others swear they never raised a blade. It doesn't matter. Sir Richard declares them traitors and orders them to be hanged or beheaded. Villages burn as examples. Children cry. Women scream.
They gave bread to dragons. That's all the guilt I need.
When Lord Derry surrenders his keep, Robert doesn't grant mercy. He lets Sir Richard deal with it.
Dragons will not be granted mercy.
Sir Raymond remains defiant, saying he is not surprised as Richard takes his head. Orys says nothing, but that night he did not sleep. When he tries to tell Robert about the fear the small folk felt, he sheds no tears.
This is war. If they don't fear, then they will raise their blades again.
The Crown's forces camp outside Harrenhal, preparing for Robert's march west to confront Tywin. Riverrun remains under siege, the Tullys barely holding. Robert cannot ignore Tywin's larger forces, even if he longs to take the fight to Viserys. He leaves Orys behind.
Clean up the traitors. Break their strength before they link up with the boy.
And Viserys?
We'll deal with the last dragon once we've clipped his wings.
I'll make you proud, father.
That, my boy, is the least of my worries. I have no doubt about it.
Orys nods, but his heart is uneasy. Over the next few days, some reinforcements trickle in, including Lyanna and Oberyn, who sail back from the Stepstones ahead of their troops.
Did you see the children in the village near Derry?
He nods. That's all. In a tower on Cracklaw Point, Viserys sits beneath candlelight, reading a scroll drafted by maesters and refined by Tywin. This will be a letter he will spread across the Seven Kingdoms to remind them of their true king. Robert Baratheon has shown the world who he truly is. A butcher, a tyrant. He claims to fight for peace while his dogs burn our people alive. He won his throne through treachery and hatred. He killed the Silver Prince Rhaegar and rebelled against his sovereign, under whom the realm prospered. Tywin nods in approval, urging him to push the message hard through ravens, spies, and captured towns.
Good. Let them know what kind of monster sits upon the throne. If they wish to act like beasts, then treat them as such.
But not everyone echoes that fury. Daenerys sits beside Sir Willem's chair, the old knight now too weak to stand. His guidance is soft but sharp.
Tell them what you would do, not just what he's done. Give them hope.
And so she opens her own letter, separate from her brother's.
To the lords of Westeros, I am Daenerys Targaryen, daughter of the realm you once swore to serve. I do not seek vengeance, only justice. We promise peace. We promise the restoration of old rights. And we vow to cleanse the rot that festers beneath Robert's court. Join us not for fear, but for hope. I know many of you serve Robert, some out of fear and some out of respect. Regardless, I do not wish to fight you. We only ask that we be given a chance to rule and show that we are not dominated by the madness that Robert claims.
Days later, a raven finds Orys' camp. He reads the scroll under moonlight. His hands tremble, not from anger, but uncertainty. The seal is unbroken. The words, not untrue. Not mad.
She doesn't sound like a monster. Not like Father says.
Not a mad woman. Neither of them speaks after that, but neither burns the scroll. Unfortunately, they do not have time to ponder this as Harrenhal becomes the target of an attack from two sides. The rebel Reachmen find themselves facing a Dornish army from the Boneway, forcing them to advance north in a desperate attempt to link up with Viserys' army. To raise morale, Daenerys is sent to join them and inspire the troops. She finds the army in chaos as sellswords burn through the fields and sow terror, heralding their arrival in chaos and fire. Orys and Lyanna Baratheon, flanked by battered Stormlands and riverfolk loyal to Robert, dig in. They hold the fortress and the roads, knowing that if the line breaks, Robert will be cut off at Riverrun. But as they finish preparing their defenses, they warn that the Reachmen have overrun the border villages. Hundreds of small folk flee north for shelter. Orys mounts without hesitation.
I need 100 men. We ride now, or we leave them to burn.
Then they burn. If they cannot flee, they die.
I will not abandon my people, even if my people abandon me.
Then get going. Don't worry about Harrenhal. I won't let it fall.
Orys charges through the brush, hammer in hand, followed by a small column. They crash into the vanguard, Tyroshi crossbowmen, Lannister lancers, and scatter them in a whirlwind of chaos. He sees them on the verge of overrunning a group of refugees. He pulls a child from beneath a fallen wagon, hoists an old man over his saddle, and strikes down a spearman mid-charge. For a moment, the sellswords falter, and it allows the refugees to rush behind them as Orys organizes his men into a defensive column with a shield wall. But they are outnumbered, and as the second wave hits, Orys goes down, stumbling from the moment. He gasps, bleeding into the soil, vision going black, and then he feels hands. His own men lift him, shield him with their bodies, and drag him onto a horse. He sees men shoving aside the tide, thrusting spears and firing crossbows to drive back the assault. Many fall, but they shield Orys with them as he rides back with the survivors. From the ridge, Daenerys sees it all. He sees how that foolish Baratheon boy risks his neck for the small folk. It was like a story from a legend, and she could only watch. Her sword feels heavy on her side, and some urge her to send the reserve. She does not, and watches them go. She rides through a newly taken village, where smoke still curls from burned roofs. A child coughs beneath a broken cart. The wounded lie in rows. Daenerys dismounts, kneels beside a wounded boy with an arrow in his gut. She wipes the blood from his mouth and whispers an apology. She visits each wounded hut, speaks to every healer. She stays with the living as they recover, and the dying as they breathe their last. Meanwhile, the armies east launch their attack, a probing strike to gouge Harrenhal's defenses. Sir Willem leads this force and comes under fire from Lyanna's archers. She stands atop the battlements, firing her longbow and breaking up the initial charge until Sir Barristan can ride out and finish them off. Sir Willem Darry stands his ground against Sir Barristan Selmy as his men retreat. The two men cross blades for the first and last time, honor against honor. Willem is struck down with a clean blow. And yet there is a scream from the enemy camp. Viserys rushes forward, heedless of the danger, and rushes towards his fallen friend. Sir Barristan turns to see the prince cutting down some of his men to recover the body. The old knight prepares to finish him off, but sees the prince's bodyguards rallying around him as they secure the body. When they return to their camp, Viserys halts the attack for a day and begins setting sticks and lumber for a funeral pyre. Men rush to help him, and they begin to light it. Viserys raises his head to the stars.
You carried me across the sea, taught me how to hold a sword, taught me when not to draw it. I never said thank you. You were the last man my father trusted, and I hope I did not fail you.
Lyanna sees all of this from her position, but Sir Willem isn't the only corpse on the battlefield. It is littered with bodies from both sides. Mothers cry at the killing grounds. Families move to try dragging their dead. The captain asks what to do.
Let them bury their sons. Tell them that no one shall harm them, on the princess's words.
She sends envoys to Viserys' camp, offering truce for one day to mourn the men who have fallen. As the messenger departs to relay her instructions, she turns to see Sir Barristan with a sad smile.
I knew him, you know, Sir Willem. A good man. I never thought we'd be on opposite ends of the battlefield.
He would have been proud to die by your hands. An honorable man fighting for what he believed in.
I'd like to think that too. Let's share a drink. To Sir Willem.
To Sir Willem.
Oberyn spreads tales of Orys' mercy and Lyanna's truce. He sends these truths among rebel ranks, highlighting the honor of their enemies to shame the ambition of their own allies. Varys does the same, telling tales of Daenerys' comforting the dying and Viserys' honoring a knight of the old regime. They hope to weaken the hearts of their opponents to urge them to see the errors of their ways. But none of them realize the messages reach their most dangerous targets, the heirs themselves. In separate camps, Orys, Lyanna, Daenerys, and even Viserys sit with quiet scrolls or reports before them. Each reads of the other's mercy, the other's courage, the other's tears. They ask their men about these rumors, at first trying to dismiss them, to claim they are exaggerations, but they know that it's not true. Tywin Lannister stands over a war map, hands clasped, watching the pins shift on the map. Robert has taken most of his army north to face him, and Tywin is careful to avoid confrontation, to keep him from marching back to aid his kids. Though they have a local advantage in numbers, once the Stormlanders, Dornish, or Reach send reinforcements, it will all be over. Stannis is already ferrying troops back from the Stepstones to lead them back into the Riverlands. Tywin sends a message to Viserys.
No more mercy, no more mourning. You want to be king? Then take it with fire.
The wind howls through the shattered towers of Harrenhal, carrying the scent of blood and smoke. The Baratheon twins stand surrounded. Their forces, battered from weeks of siege and flanked on two sides, begin to falter as Daenerys' vanguard presses from the south and Viserys' elite forces storm from the east. The courtyard is chaotic. Flaming arrows streak across the sky. The gate soon falls as Viserys commits everything in this assault. The castle is simply too large, and they cannot defend everywhere at once. So amidst the gaps in their lines, the men begin to infiltrate the halls, including the Dragon Prince. Orys stands in the Great Hall, blood dripping from a wound above his brow. Viserys walks in, sword drawn. His armor gleams with soot and gold. His face is pale, but his eyes are resolute.
Your reign ends here, pretender. I'm not wearing a crown, dragon, but if it's peace you want to kill, then come and try.
Their weapons clash with the force of thunder. Viserys fights with a duelist's speed, quick, elegant, calculating. Orys is brute force, but not without skill. He parries, pivots, and pushes Viserys back with his hammer strikes that crack stone underfoot. They fight from the hall to the courtyard steps. Below, Lyanna rallies their remaining forces, shielding retreating men, her arrows finding targets with deadly precision. She shouts to her brother, but he cannot hear over the roar of battle. Then, from the northern woods, horns sound. Banners of the direwolf rise behind the dragon lines. Ned Stark has come south, marching a third of his army through the Green Fork. The rest of his troops rush to Robert's aid. His riders crash into the flanks of Viserys' forces. Men scream. Steel clashes anew. Daenerys orders a withdrawal. Viserys turns to look just long enough, and Orys knocks the sword from his hand. Viserys drops to his knees, bloodied and breathless. Orys breathes heavily, the warhammer trembling in his hands.
Do it. Isn't this what Robert taught you? No mercy for dragons.
Orys lowers the hammer.
I'm not my father. You're not the man I thought you were. And I don't think I'm the man you expected either. Take him alive. You fought well, like your father. Your sister, she let our dead be burned. That was mercy we weren't taught to expect.
Soon enough, Ned Stark arrives and sees what is happening. He regards Viserys with sad eyes. Rather than looking triumphant or victorious, he simply appears tired.
I fought for Robert. You fought for your name. But the people in between, they only fought to survive. You don't have to be enemies.
Viserys is quiet. His bruised face still holds pride, but the fury in his eyes has cooled.
You think your king will accept peace with the dragon? No, but he will accept me. That is, if you will accept that you shall not rule the Iron Throne. The Targaryen's time is past. You think it's that easy to silence the dragon? Robert was a murderer. He butchered my family and slew my brother. And what of Elia and her family? Rhaegar fell on the field of battle, as did Sir Willem, and all the good men who pledged themselves to you. As for Elia, that is a black mark with which Robert must live. But are you forgetting it was Lord Tywin who murdered her? He said he had to. That Robert would have done it. Then you do not know Robert as I. He would rage and threaten, but he is not the sort to butcher children. It is not in his nature. Ask his children. He knew you were in hiding all these years, but he never sent assassins. My father, he's a flawed man. A man stuck in the past, but he's not a child killer.
Lyanna appeared from the doorway, her bow slung against her back.
It's true. Whenever he tells us these stories of what happened to Elia, he always says he would have done it. But all I saw in his eyes was sadness. Enough people have died in this war. We can end it now.
There's a long silence. Then Viserys extends his hand.
You carry the dragon, and I carry the dragon.
Orys grips his hand and nods. The banners of House Lannister smolder in the fields outside Riverrun. The siege is broken. Ned Stark's forces pass the route, chasing the last remnants of Tywin's army into the rivers and hills. In the wake of the chaos, Robert Baratheon rides through the gate, armor dented, cloak torn, blood spattered against the crowned stag on his chest. His war is nearly won, but as he rests and recovers from his wounds, men announce the arrival of his children, dragon banners flying outside his own. He rushes up to the battlements, staring at the strangest sight and hardly believing what he sees. Robert tries to make sense of it, but nothing comes to mind as the group comes inside. Orys Lyanna, Viserys, Daenerys, Ned Stark.
What is this? What game is this, Ned? Is this treason? You'd march with them?
It's peace, Robert. Real peace. Hard won by those who bled for it. Your children and theirs. This is what we fought for.
We fought for victory. There can be no peace so long as the dragons draw breath.
Lyanna Baratheon flinches, but she doesn't back down.
You've never fought this war for justice. You fought it for a ghost.
Robert recoils as if struck. He stares at his children, barely able to understand what is happening.
Lyanna, how could you?
You never saw us for who we are, Father. Only for who we reminded you of. You taught us to hate, but we chose to understand.
Robert's mouth opens, but no words come.
You loved Lyanna Stark so much you forgot to love the family you had. It seems like you'd rather have her than us.
Robert stares at them, the daughter who carries the name of the woman he lost, and the son who now stands beside the children of the very house he swore to destroy.
Deanna, Oris, I never believed that.
Then show it. Show you are not haunted by the past. Viserys is prepared to make peace. Reach out to him.
He sees Daenerys' calm gaze, Viserys' tired dignity, Oris' bruised face, still proud, Lyanna, fire in her eyes and tears on her cheeks. For the first time, Robert sees past his rage, past his grief, to the future.
I was a fool. 7 hells. I was a damn fool.
He drops his hammer. It clatters to the stone with the finality of a closed chapter. For once, he truly offers terms that are agreed to. Oris will remain heir and will marry Daenerys to unite their houses. Lyanna is given Dragonstone, and Viserys is given Castle Rock as the Lannisters are stripped of their position, and Robert, he begins to rule. Truly rule. Seeing how much his children have matured since the war, Robert realizes how complacent he's become and begins to truly rule. He guides the new heirs to his throne and provides advice to Viserys, who settles in the 7 kingdoms. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the 7 kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.